I'm Kennedy Rizzo.
And I'm Cooper Lee.
In this week's Apple Snack, we talk about our hardwired passion for our memories surrounding the retro late night nostalgia of the 80s show, Night Tracks.
Woohoo!
I know, right? So we warmly invite you to jump aboard as we unlock the key components of this memorable show that make it an obsessive topic for conversation. Let's go. Night Tracks was a music based series that launched on June 3rd, 1983 through May 30th, 1992, on the ever familiar cable station from back in the day, Superstation WTBS, or uh, better known as TBS Superstation, on late night weekends.
Oh, yes. This is a way too cool topic of conversation we are tackling this week.
Word.
Just hearing the title Night Tracks sounds so 80s. And it instantly takes you back to those fun, much better times.
Word again.
Now that we're diving deep into Night Tracks, fun fact. Did you know that the first music video aired on Night Tracks was the song Family Man by Daryl Hall and John Oates of Hall and Oates fame?
Oh my gosh, good song and even great group.
Yeah, it had to start with someone. Good choice, huh?
Yeah, sure is. And it is a great way to start off this most awesome 80s discussion this week.
Yeah.
The show started off with a bang by launching off with Hall and Oates. So no wonder Night Tracks proved to rock and be so successful while it was on. So let's briefly look into the backstory of the bit of prime nostalgia, shall we?
Okay. So, again, starting out in 1983, Night Tracks debuted at the late night time slot of 12:05 a.m. and ran all night long until 6:05 a.m. the next morning. And Night Tracks was set up or composed of two 3-hour blocks of music videos.
That's right. And check this out. The next day on Saturday, the two blocks of music videos were played again as they did on Friday, but in reverse order. Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
So, do you actually remember that detail right there, Coop?
Yes, that's very cool, but I don't really recall that specific detail.
Oh, okay, okay.
The whole Saturday reverse presentation. Just remember how big this show was on an actual cable station we could access and watch.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah, that was big.
We thought we were in there too because we could see videos. And I also remember telling myself each Friday night that I was going to try to stay up and watch the whole segment until 6:05 a.m. But I honestly and truly never made that goal. I totally get started and probably about 2, 3 videos in, I'd be sawing logs by that point.
Uh-oh, mission failed.
But I tried. I really, really tried.
And Night Tracks was so much fun because it was airing right in the middle of the whole hyped up era of the music video.
Mm-hmm.
Due to MTV fame, influence, and its universal draw, especially in the mid 80s, when Night Tracks was much more established at that time.
You're right. And it was basically TBS Superstation's answer to MTV and the music video phenomenon of the 80s.
Mhm.
Now, like you said a bit ago, just talking about this in detail in this week's Apple Snack, it really takes you back.
It sure does. And I love it.
Me too.
Hence the topic this week.
That's right.
Now, what Night Tracks did differently from MTV was presenting a much more genre diverse playlist, such as synth, new wave, R&B, and dance music, as well as pop.
Yeah, what others, as well as myself, generally liked about this show was the off air VJ commentary that didn't swallow up either the premise of the show or the videos themselves, which was quite refreshing, actually.
It truly was. Yes, it was.
Hmm.
They did their due diligence to keep focused on the music.
Yes.
Other segments of the show highlighted Chartbusters, which I totally love and remember because it was in a countdown format, and the other was Power Play, which presented the most popular chart toppers at the time.
That's right. Okay, so now that we're like really focused and talking about Night Tracks briefly, do you remember, Coop, how the visual display they'd show at their intro and outro of the show?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of color, a lot of pinks and purples
And
uh,
Aqua.
yes, and like everything was like real geometric shaped and blocks and shapes and
Yes.
even the word night tracks was really it was like presented in a live animated action or fashion like it was at the beginning of some of the movies back then.
Yeah, like I think Mannequin did it like that, and I think Troop Beverly Hills kind of had what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they'd have this big old turntable, old school record player, and it had a vinyl on it.
Oh,
And then they had this big old needle, and it would come out, and then it would go over all robotically, and then it would sit down onto the vinyl and start playing. And then you would roll into your music video right after that commercial break or whatever. It's so cool.
oh my goodness. Yes, that was the business. Can completely remember that.
Oh, I love going back in time.
Me too.
Oh, Night Tracks really did feature the best music videos, though.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, we can't say this enough. Talking about this really takes you back. I mean, this show really did stand out and had quite the following amongst most of our peer group.
Mhm.
They'd play songs from like a group called Musical Youth. They had I think they might have been a one hit wonder, but they had a song called Pass the Dutchie.
Okay.
That was very 80s. Then there was Expose, which, they were live at that time. They had a lot of good songs.
They really did. They were awesome.
Yeah. One of the ones I remember specifically seeing on Night Tracks a lot was Come Go With Me. And then, like we mentioned at the outset, there was a lot of good songs from Hall & Oates and hot kind of stars like Prince.
Oh, yes, yes. Night Tracks was quite synonymous to representing the 80s in its prime.
In its prime.
Again, that's why we're doing said subject today. They played such a diverse variety, unlike MTV, that a bit of the time was focused on heavy metal and the big hair bands back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like Twisted Sister. Which our older cousin and his girlfriend just loved.
They did. They were watching those videos on a loop.
And Night Tracks showed some much needed love to so many of the one hit wonders of the mid late 80s. So many of those songs were highly important too, and are so also cherished as memories.
Yeah. Videos in that era were so creative and original. That's what made them memorable.
Yeah.
And they were etched into our memories But so much of the nostalgia of watching Night Tracks was that it definitely took place during such a wonderful, carefree era of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were all younger and more vibrant. We were full of wonder and hope back then.
Yeah.
And there would seem like there was fun always just waiting for us around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even if it was just hearing great music or watching the visual representation of said music in a music video. I don't know. There was just something about this time and all the retro memories surrounding it that just was so priceless.
Yeah. Priceless is a good word. Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show. And TBS, whenever they played shows, their time slots were always 5 after the hour or half hour.
Uh-huh.
That's why it would come on at 12:05 a.m. through 6:05 a.m. That was standard procedure then for all of the TBS Superstation shows.
Mm-hmm.
So, on that note, we have a fun fact.
Okay.
So, we mentioned early on that the Saturday night presentation of Night Tracks was a reverse repeat of Friday night's show. This was done due to some of the TBS sports show segments, like NBA on TBS and Braves baseball. They ran overtime and they would spill over into the Night Tracks time slot.
Oh, the horror.
I know, right?
Get your own time slots, kids. So when that happened, Night Tracks would end before the entire scheduled video block had been aired. And potentially give those of us yet another shot at our hand at catching part of the show we may have missed when we fell asleep 2 videos in the night before.
Yes.
So maybe we should be saying thank you.
We do appreciate it.
It still never worked.
And as most good things from the 80s, it came to an end. Mm-hmm. This unfortunately became the case for Night Tracks due to the ever-changing, ever-evolving realm of pop culture and music. Mm-hmm. Interest in music videos, although started out as all the rage when Night Tracks debuted, unfortunately, interest in music videos as a whole started to diminish in the late 80s.
Yes. And other shows similar to this one on other channels, they either tried to revamp and or cancel their shows. Yeah. So this occurrence was around I'd say 1986, 1987 era. Mm. Yeah, this trend was, even affecting Mothership MTV. As a result, in 1989, TBS had no choice than to cut back Night Tracks' devoted airtime to music videos. And by March 1989, Friday nights introduced a 1-hour power play with, count 'em, 3-hour block of videos beginning at 1 a.m.
1 or was it 105?
You're right, you got me. 105. And after many more tweaks, changes, and content and scheduling workarounds, TBS replaced even more of Night Tracks airtime with a show called Night Flicks on May 15th, 1992.
Never heard of it.
Nope, me either. But sadly, just a week after that, on May 29th, 1992, that date right there was the kiss of death of what we knew and loved of Night Tracks altogether. How very disappointing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it did kind of just seem to disappear, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And now through a little digging, we have a backstory as to why and what actually happened.
So true, Cooper. Now, quick mention of the Night Tracks of the VJs, which I only remember a couple of them when we did watch, was Bob Coburn, and he served on there as VJ from 1983 to 1986. Joanne Earnhardt, she was on from 1983 to 1989, and Fraser Smith at the same time.
Now, this is rotten, but I remember the celebrity guest VJs more, and that was Taylor Dane, as well as the Pet Shop Boys.
Oh.
Both awesome 80s throwback references.
Oh, totally love both of those. Oh,
Mm-hmm,
oh my
mm-hmm.
God, those are so perfectly 80s. So again, we, the audience, never actually saw the VJ's faces as the show segments played out. But during a typical night track show, they would mention the featured artists and music videos aired within that hour. They would also mention cool facts and info about the artists right before their videos were aired.
Remember the segments, the Night Tracks new music video of the week?
Uh-huh.
And the Night Tracks inside track?
Yes.
That was a short one question interview just before the artist video aired, as well as other notable segments. Good times those were.
Oh, yes.
You know, I wouldn't trade our time of growing up in the 80s for anything. No amount of money. We were truly fortunate.
Facts. And apparently envied by other generations both before and after us.
Absolutely.
But going back in time and revisiting cool retro topics like the one we did this week on Night Tracks, it's not hard to see why.
And that's it for this week's Apple Snack. But as you know, there's always more where that came from, so stay tuned. Subscribe, review, and spread the word. See you next time in the Retro Orchard, and thanks so much for listening.